And you see, it's very important to recognize, if you want to understand what communism means in Southeast Asia, to realize that along with many authoritarian and repressive practices, which I certainly don't condone, there is on the side a great deal of democratization. There's been a liberation of energies and involvement.
Utter nonsense, if I may say so.
I don't think you're right.
After all, the great paradigm of Red China, in which the AFL-CIO itself concedes to something in the neighborhood of 20 million victims on that particular. I'm talking according to them. Or
but
perhaps I didn't ask you whether that was correct.
The AFL-CIO
they did have a commission out there.
No one has claimed the million people killed through Chinese communist purges.
Oh.
Absolutely no one.
Well,
no one serious, at least.
It was published in the New Leader.
Fine.
Which
well, the New Leader, yes, of course, the New Leader might. I mean, but I'm talking about
CIA plant.
Well, I said no one serious has. Take a look at the China Journal. Take a look at China Quarterly.
I consider this
but
to be serious.
You see, I think you're missing the point, really, and I think it's an important point. See, I think in looking at China, one has to recognize a great deal of repressive practice, a great deal of authoritarianism, and one also has to recognize a great deal of spontaneous democratic structure of a sort which never existed in Asia before, and if you want to know the truth, to some extent doesn't even exist in our society. Now, these things exist side by side.
If you read A Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich, you find out that there's an extraordinary democratic structure even inside concentration camps. But it seems to me that it's almost profane to make this observation.
I think it's profane to make that analogy, because I'm talking about true democracy in which...
I don't think so.
Look, in which people, the peasants who live in a village control the institutions of their lives. They control the organization.
If you want to get out, you bump into the Berlin Wall on either side of the...
There's no Berlin Wall in China.
There's the equivalent of a Berlin Wall. There's the sea, and there's starvation, there's concentration.
No, there's no... That's just the point. You see, starvation has been very largely overcome in China. I'm, of course, opposed to terror. Any rational person is. But I think that if we're serious about the question of terror, if we're serious about the question of violence, we have to recognize that that it is a tactical and hence moral matter. Incidentally, tactical issues are basically moral issues. They have to do with human consequences, and if we're interested in, let's say, diminishing the amount of violence in the world, it's at least arguable, and perhaps even sometimes true, that a terroristic act does diminish the amount of violence in the world. Hence, a person who is opposed to violence will not be opposed to that terroristic act.